Hello and welcome to another video. My name is Boxiest, and today we're going to continue the What If series. What if events had gone differently? And in this What If, we're going to change the history of Cobra Kai. What if Mike Barnes trained Robbie during the events of Cobra Kai Season 1, Part 3? If you guys haven't seen Part 1 and Part 2, I would recommend you guys go watch them before continuing this one. So in this timeline, Kreese would go see Terry Silver, and Terry Silver would be surprised to see Kreese after all these years. Kreese would tell Terry about Mike Barnes and how he was trying to take down Cobra Kai, but Terry wouldn't want to hear it, and much like in the original timeline, Terry wouldn't want to get involved, and the events of Cobra Kai would continue. Mike Barnes would want to catch the students that broke into his store, and he would want to press charges. Eventually, Kreese would get into Terry's head, and he would want to confront Kreese at the Cobra Kai dojo. So Terry Silver would show up at the Cobra Kai dojo. Johnny would be surprised to see him, and he would ask him who he was. Terry would say that he was an old acquaintance of Kreese. Kreese would be happy to see Terry Silver, so Kreese and Terry would talk, and much like in the original timeline, Terry Silver would become another sensei at Cobra Kai. Johnny wouldn't be happy that Kreese was bringing in more senseis. He would feel like he was losing control of Cobra Kai. Kreese would tell Johnny that if they were going to take down Mike Barnes, they needed Terry Silver. So Johnny, Kreese, and Terry Silver would co-run Cobra Kai in this timeline, and the events of Cobra Kai would continue. Daniel would hear that Terry Silver was back, and he would want to talk to Johnny. He would want to warn Johnny that Terry Silver was worse than Kreese, and that he was dangerous and not to be trusted, but Johnny would say that he had everything under control. Daniel would think that Terry Silver was secretly working with Mike Barnes, and that this was all planned by Terry Silver to take over Cobra Kai. Johnny would be mad, and he wouldn't trust Terry Silver. Kreese, Terry Silver, and Johnny would plan to take down Mike Barnes, and Terry would want to come up with a plan, but Johnny wouldn't trust him. Daniel would want to go confront Mike Barnes on his own, so Daniel would sneak into Mike's warehouse, and he would overhear Mike talking on his phone. He would think that he was talking to Terry Silver, so Daniel would confront Mike Barnes in this timeline, and Mike would be surprised to see Daniel after all these years. Daniel would think that Mike was working with Silver, but Mike would be surprised to hear that Terry Silver was back, and he would be worried. So much like in the original timeline, Mike and Daniel would talk. Mike would apologize to Daniel for everything he did in 1985. Daniel would be surprised to hear this, and their conversation would stay the same. Mike would say he wasn't working with Terry Silver, but that he was planning to take down Cobra Kai. Daniel would tell Mike that Cobra Kai wasn't the problem, that it was Silver and Kreese. He would say that Cobra Kai's changed, and that they weren't the same dojo they were in the 80s. He would say that Johnny Lawrence was trying to make his students better. Daniel would also say that his daughter was dating one of Cobra Kai's students, and that they weren't all so bad. Robbie would hear the conversation. This is when Robbie would introduce himself to Daniel. He would say that he was surprised to hear that him and Johnny were friends. After all those years of Johnny hating Daniel, Daniel would admit that at first Johnny and him were enemies, but over time Johnny had changed and become a better person. Mike and Robbie would hear this, and they would start to change their mind about Johnny. Daniel and Johnny would meet again, and Daniel would tell him everything that happened with Mike Barnes, and at first, Johnny would feel betrayed, but this is when Daniel would tell him that Robbie wants to talk to him again. So Daniel, Johnny, Mike, and Robbie would meet up. Johnny still wouldn't like Mike Barnes, but Mike would apologize to Johnny for how they started off on the wrong foot. Robbie would tell Johnny that Mike really helped him, and he would ask Johnny to give Mike a second chance. So for Robbie's sake, Johnny and Mike would start to be on good terms, and he would start to see that Mike Barnes wasn't that bad, and Mike would want to warn Johnny about Terry and Kreese. He would tell him that they were going to corrupt his students. Johnny would say that Kreese has changed, but that he doesn't trust Terry Silver. Johnny would tell Mike that Kreese and Terry were planning to take him down, but that he was going to try to stop it. So later that day, Johnny would talk to Kreese. He would tell him that him and Mike were on good terms, and that their rivalry was off, but Kreese would get mad, and he would tell Johnny that he's gotten soft. He would say that LaRusso and Barnes have changed him, and they have made him side with the enemy, but Johnny wouldn't want to hear this. He would just want to return things to how they were, but Kreese wouldn't like it, so he would decide to kick Johnny out of Cobra Kai. He would tell Johnny that it was for his own good. Some of the students would be conflicted about Johnny being kicked out of Cobra Kai. They would see him as weak for losing to Mike Barnes, but Miguel and Aisha and a couple other students would go with Johnny, so Johnny would decide to open up his own dojo with the help of Daniel and Mike Barnes, and they would want to take down Cobra Kai, and that is where I'm going to end part 3. Thank you guys for watching. What do you guys think would have happened if Mike Barnes trained Robbie during the events of Cobra Kai Season 1? Let me know in the comments below. YouTube lets me know that the majority of you are not subscribed, so if you guys could subscribe, that would be much appreciated. Thank you guys for watching. Make sure to like this video, subscribe, and turn on post notifications. And I'll see you guys next time.